A tale of nudity, arrest, and insanity. A Datura trip report by Crystalline Sheen. Posted to earwid.org September 24th, 2002. So, here's a life-changing experience for you all. I was just rereading the stories in the Datura vault, and I decided that my experience would be one that folks would like to read. Let's go back a ways, to August 22nd, 1998, a date that will live in infamy for me. At the time, I had just finished my first year in college, and had been working with relatives in Mississippi that summer to save money and go out to work as a roofer in New Mexico with a college buddy. My father thought I was wasting my time, dropping out of college to go and roam about the country. But to be honest, I was ready to get out of my home state of Louisiana and finally take to the road. The road led to Dallas, Texas, where my buddy, we'll call him Lucifer, was staying with another friend, let's call her E, for a time. The plan was for me to leave Mississippi, go home to Louisiana, and storm out to Dallas. To be free from the clutches of home for the first time in my life. The day I left Louisiana for Texas, I felt a tremendous surge of freedom, almost orgasmic in its implications. I felt like I'd been released from a kind of prison, and was ready to hit Dallas and party for a week before heading on to New Mexico with my friend Lucifer. So here, the stage is set. I arrive in the sprawling metropolis and experience the debilitating effects of the worst heatwave in the city in years. Temps were up over 110 with the heat index. It was god-awfully hot. I make my way through the scramble to E's apartment. She shared this with her mother, who was a cool hippie type. And there, I reunited with my good friends. We chill, we get stoned, and catch up on each other's summer adventures up to that point. Eventually, we feel like going out. So, Lucifer, he goes off to visit a girlfriend, and E and I go to her boyfriend's apartment complex to go swimming in the pool. I put on my shorts and place my wallet and keys into my luggage, an action I was very glad I did later on, and we went off to take a nice cool dip. We arrive, I meet E's boyfriend for the first time, and we splash around for a while. As it starts to get dark, an impromptu party erupts around the pool. A keg gets brought out, and everyone proceeds to get really messed up, Texas style. The complex seemed to house many college-aged party kids, so there was just partiers coming out of the woodwork. All different kinds of folks, from ghetto gangsters to rave kids to cowboys crowded around, having a mellow time. But this benevolent vibe did not last for very long. A couple of people pull knives, and I hear someone say, "He's got a gun!" So everyone just immediately scatters. We all run into E's boyfriend's apartment to escape the carnage. Inside, everyone chills out, and soon the bong's going round and the beer is flowing again. I check out the motley collection of people around me. I didn't know a soul, but everyone seemed to be fairly cool and ready to seriously get down. I had no idea that one of the party attendees was about to unveil something for which there is no words, no explanations. Just a magic plant that takes you to the edge of death and pushes you right over. That's right, kids. Enter Jimson weed onto the stage. Now, I was familiar with Jimson weed, having read Carlos Castaneda's experiences with this plant ally, but I had no idea what actually awaited me. This guy pulls out a gallon-sized Ziploc baggie, about halfway filled with some kind of seed. This, everyone, is Jimson weed, and it'll make you trip for like 2 days, usually. I often charge $40 for a dose, indicating that a handful was a dose, but I'll dose anyone who wants it right now for free. Good God. When someone starts handing out drugs, I'm usually first in line. But the earlier violence outside, and the fact that I knew no one there kept me from swallowing the seeds that the dealer had handed to me. I decided to wait for my friend Lucifer to return from his girl's house to see if he wanted to trip on this stuff as well. A couple of other fellows immediately swallowed the handfuls. In retrospect, after reading hundreds of trip reports on this substance, this guy's recommended dose was way too much. I don't even think calling this a heroic dose is doing it justice. I sit and watch to see what the seeds will do to these guys. Then, after about 10 minutes, I'm like, ugh, fuck it then, and down the seeds with a swig of beer. 5 minutes later, and no, I'm fucked. One of the guys starts to stare at the wall, unblinking, unresponsive. His behaviour is weird because earlier he had been very lively, but now he was just catatonic. I mean, this guy was truly out of it. People started to get worried. When the guy suddenly comes to, he leaps up and dashes out the door. Later on, the guy said that he realised he was in for the trip of his life, so he just went to his apartment, locked himself inside, and spent the next 2 days destroying his place and locked into the worst form of insanity. The other guy stood up like the other dude, but started running into walls as hard as he could. Everyone tried to restrain him, but it was like he was on PCP or something. Oh, shit. I'm about to become very fucking deranged. It was a horrible feeling. And a few minutes later, I started to get the worst stomach cramps of my entire life. My body told me, oh, you've just poisoned yourself badly, and you might not make it, you know. I got very scared and ran into the bathroom where my stomach proceeded to turn itself inside out. I think this action probably saved my life. After I was finished, I had this feeling like I drank a couple of cases of beer and my legs were so wobbly I could hardly walk. Every muscle in my body felt flabby and loose. I returned to the living room where I felt concern from people. "Are you alright?" he was repeatedly asking me. I tried to tell her I wasn't, but my tongue would not work properly at all. At about this time, I started to feel like there were insects crawling around under my skin, an extremely uncomfortable sensation. It was so bad that I began to claw at my flesh in order to rip them out. The last thing I remembered was leaping up off the couch, running out the door, and then blackness. I don't know what happened. It was like being in a dream. Entities swirled around me. I had the vague sensation of being around people, but my memories of this time are kind of like recalling a hazy dream. Nothing was substantial. Finally, I woke up. It was morning and I was in an apartment, lying on the floor, curled up in a fetal position, naked. How had I arrived at this particular point in space and time? Well, it was all just a mystery to me. My eyes were as dry as a desert, and my contacts were sticking to my eyelids, making everything look really fuzzy. The odd thing was, it was like I had woken up into a dream, but I was aware that the dream was consensus reality, but a dream nonetheless. I felt incredibly happy though, and full of elation. Suddenly, I was aware of human presences entering the room. Intrigued, I studied them to become aware of their intent. One of the people seemed to be an average middle-aged man, but to my surprise, the other two were wearing uniforms and were armed. Why, it's the police, I thought. But why are they here? What is actually going on? The police came over to me and started asking me questions. I couldn't tell if they were real or not, but I jabbered my jaws in a manner resembling speech, and they seemed satisfied with my answers. One of the officers gets a bedsheet from somewhere, wraps it round me, toga style. I thought I'd changed into someone from ancient Greece, and couldn't figure out why my hands were being cuffed. Surely the Greeks need their hands free. I was led out into the bright sunshine when I realised just how thirsty and sensitive to light my eyes truly were. But to be honest, I was just having the greatest time getting arrested. It was like I was aware of this happening to me, but I was so far away. I was like, it's a dream. I'll wake up back in my bed in Louisiana in no time. So I went along with the officers to see where they would take me. Along the way, I tried to make jolly conversation from the back seat, realising that I'm being arrested. So, tell me gentlemen, what exactly am I being arrested for? They wouldn't respond. Oh well, I thought, and continued my conversation with the other people in the back seat with me. It was weird. I was talking to this guy in the back seat and he promptly disappeared, but I really wasn't disturbed by this. The cops continued to ply me with questions like, which day is this? Do you know what the year is? Do you know who the president is? And other such inanities. I answered all of them with gusto and personality because I wanted them to like me. So what drugs do you like to do then? In response to their question, I responded, well, I just got really drunk at the kegger last night, officer, and I just don't know what happened after that. Now that I look back on that, I'm glad I instinctively knew not to admit the fact that I was blasted on Jimson weed, thereby saving me 3 days in the psycho ward. We pull into the giant structure located in the heart of Dallas, which is the Dallas County Jail. I was led into the heart of processing, and I was convinced that I was in an airport for some reason, with all of the hubbub around me. My toga kept falling off, revealing my nakedness to hundreds of people, but I was so far out there, I didn't even notice until cops kept putting my sheet back on. After the volley of fingerprinting and paperwork, I was led into a single cell and given an orange jumpsuit to wear. Man, getting locked into a cell while mad on Jimson weed is really something to behold. I immediately realised my situation and got serious in a dissociated sort of way. It was the first time I had ever been in jail, but the emotional impact of this was lost on me, as I was totally oblivious to everything. It was like the feeling you get when you wake up out of a deep sleep. You know, that out of it feeling? It was like that, except about 100 times stronger. I tried to get my faculties in order, but I was just tripping so very hard still. I honestly couldn't do anything but wait. I think I was put in my cell about 8 in the morning, and stayed in there until about 10 o'clock at night. It was like I turned on my survival mode, and even ate the shitty prison food because I knew I needed to keep up my strength somehow. As the day wore on, I started to come back to reality, and I started to worry about exactly what I had done to get here. Had I killed somebody? Even attacked someone? I had no idea of the seriousness of the transgression that had landed me here, and no one would tell me anything. Finally, at long last, a jailer came and let me out, handcuffing me to a group of about 10 other people. Okay people, it's time to go see the judge. Alright, I thought. Now I get to find out what I'd actually done. After arriving in the courtroom, the judge scrolled down the list, and finally, when she got to my name, I feared the worst. The charge. Disorderly conduct. Doesn't sound so serious, I thought. I was actually elated in a way. The next thing I know, I'm going through another set of corridors to stand in another line. The friendly jailer keeps us all there, joking about what we were all going to do when we got out. I bet you all go and get drunk, won't you? He grinned, looking at me. What the hell did you do? I don't know, but I got seriously wasted last night and got into some shit. Everyone laughed, as obviously I was on very powerful drugs and probably looked like shit. The jailer gives me some street clothes and shoes. I'd been wandering around the jail all day shoeless as well. And miraculously, after this, lets us go. I was elated, until I realised I had no money, and had no idea where I was, and was still tripping very fucking hard. In jail, I'd been surrounded by a lot of people, and I kept feeling like they were all still around me. I was at a loss of what to do, so I just set out walking. Spirits kept revolving around me, kind of like the way electrons surround an atom. As I walked, my trip seemed to grow in intensity. I recall myself just having great conversations with all of my friends, and then just realising, oh wait, they're not actually here. And then, I'd see another one of my friends walking beside me and renewing the conversation. I even remember seeing Lucifer, running up to him to tell him about my experience so far. Hey man, you should have actually kept me for those cops. Like, what the fuck were you even thinking, dude? And he'd just smile and disappear. Eventually, I found myself rapidly walking out of town in some weird area. The kind of place I'd normally be paranoid driving through at night sober, not to mention on foot, out of my head on Jimson weed. Amazingly though, I actually felt no fear, as the spirits surrounding me revealed themselves to be my guardian angels. They were spirits of my ancestors, and of people I had never met. I somehow knew they were going to help me survive this experience, and keep me from harm. I decided to walk back into the city, and a new problem manifested itself. As I stated previously, Dallas was in the middle of a heat wave, and I was desperately hot and thirsty. Earlier that summer, I had suffered heat exhaustion, and I felt my body slipping back into that state. My survival instinct kicked in, and I managed to keep myself hydrated by drinking out of water sprinklers and gutters. I knew if I didn't keep myself hydrated that I would die. I imagined that a lot of the thirst was directly caused by the Jimson weed. Man, that stuff just sucks it all out of you. I finally reached a point after walking around the city for several hours that my body needed rest, so I found a spot under an overpass with a spectacular view of the city. I went to sleep and woke up at dawn. Immediately upon waking, I resumed my walking. My delirium seemed to be increasing as the day progressed and the temperature climbed. It seemed like I just couldn't keep enough fluids in me, and I was slowly dying. Suddenly, I had a flash of memory. I remembered the name of the street that E's apartment was on. Encouraged by this recall, I asked everyone I ran into until I was pointed in the right direction. "Oh, it's about 6 miles that way," said some denizen of the city. Great, another 6 miles in this heat, along the side of one of the main expressways in the city. It was like the Bataan Death March to me. I knew that I was in a struggle for my life and there was no more water to be found. I knew I was getting very close, but the heat exhaustion just claimed me, and I knew my situation was finally getting to a critical point. I called on my guardian spirits to help me, but they were nowhere to be found. Out of the blue, I hear a cry. "Hey, come over here, I've got some water. You really don't look so good." I looked to where the voice was coming from, and I spied a city work crew. A black man was waving me over to the water cooler. At first, I thought these were imaginary people like all of the rest, but then took a swig of water and realised that the spirits had saved me once again. I looked at the man, and I realised that his spirit was one of the ones that had accompanied me since I'd gotten out of jail. He was like a redeeming angel. I gushed thanks to him, and asked him if I was close to the street I was looking for. "Yeah, it's right over there, about a couple of blocks up." Eureka! I was going to survive this after all. I staggered the rest of the way to the street, and then follow it to the apartment building where E lived. I went to a door, knocked, and Lucifer opens the door, and totally flips out on me. But we were very glad to see one another, as they all thought I was dead. I don't remember anything except falling out on the floor in a dead faint after this, aware that I had made it out of the most trying event of my whole life. The aftermath. It took me about 4 days to get back to normal. I had to use a cane to walk for about a week after, as my body had been smashed like I'd been in a motorcycle accident. Evidently, I had fallen repeatedly during my blackout phase. I pieced together what had happened to me with the help of people who had been at the party. It seems I had jumped out of the apartment, took off all my clothes, and spent the rest of the evening jumping in and out of the pool, accounting for all of the abrasions and lacerations suffered from banging into concrete repeatedly. What got the cops called, though, was that I started to go up to people's apartments, stark naked of course, and saying, "I am the Terminator," then laughing gleefully and just running away. So, I guess I didn't do anything too bad. The worst thing that came out of the entire ordeal was that E's boyfriend got kicked out of his apartment because of my behaviour. Turns out, the guy who had been with the cops when I came to was the apartment manager, and that my arrest was enough to get E's boyfriend and roommates kicked out for good. Pretty weak reasoning, but shit happens, I guess. Surprisingly, the boyfriend and roommates weren't really mad at me, saying, "It could have happened to any one of us, dude." I was decent and helped them move the shit out. All the while I was doing this, I had all of these people who lived in the complex making comments like, "Fucked up, weren't you?" and "Nice ass," and just shit sort of like that, I guess. Hey, I would have laughed at me too if I were them. Now, let me just say, I will never, ever do Jimson weed again. But in a twisted sort of sense, I'm glad for the experience. If any of you, for some godforsaken reason, decide to do this, be out somewhere far away from civilization with plenty of good trip-sitters, and prepare to have one foot in the land of the dead and one in the land of the living for about 3 days. This experience changed me as much as my first acid trip did. But this plant will make you realise what death is all about. It was said that Jim Morrison, known for his seemingly superhuman ability to consume substances without any ill effect, was permanently changed by this weed, as was I. Be careful, everyone, and stay away from this stuff, because it truly is a trip into death. Love and light.